Hey, what's good, everybody? It's me, your hero, Benjamin Banks, and you are listening to and watching a brand new episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Rebellious _ D23. How you doing today, bro?
Hey, man, how's it going?
Hey, I am doing fine. And, usually up here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks, we're a three-man team. Most of the time, it's always me, D, and Trav. And sometimes it's just been me and Trav. But today, on this brand new episode, it is just me and Rebellious D. And, unfortunately, Trav, he couldn't join us here because he's off in space fighting monsters right now to keep our universe protected. And, Trav, we hope that you have a speedy recovery when you defeat those monsters. And we'll see you next time up here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. So today's guest that we have up here is a very talented voice actress, and everybody knows that I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I think that D, just relax.
I'm sorry.
She likes JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, if not as much as me, but even more as me, and that is Miss Kira Buckland. How are you doing today, Kira?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it is awesome to have you up here. We appreciate you joining us today on a brand new episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. So before we get into today's interview, everybody that's watching this, make sure that you like the video, you subscribe to the channel, and you hit that bell button so that way you're always notified when we have new content here on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks.
Podcast in the description. Like, follow, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.
Awesome. So Kira, again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us up here. Now, something that we do on the podcast for all of our guests is we ask, what is your origin story? Every hero or villain has one. So tell everybody who Kira Buckland is.
So origin story from like the very beginning or from when I started in the industry? Because I started kind of like as a hobby way before I, started working in official projects like games and anime and stuff.
I said the beginning.
Yeah, usually like when that spaceship landed in Kansas and the Kents found you in the spaceship. Or no, better yet, since it's when those fishermen pulled that coffin from the sea and then they open it up.
There we go.
And you were hey D, I gotta do this. It's like,
I know. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, I hope it's a Magikarp fisherman because Gyarados is my favorite Pokemon. So.
Hey,
good pick.
Okay.
Strong Pokemon.
But yeah, to answer your question, I kind of got into anime and video games when I was around 16 because people I knew at the time were like, hey, you should check this out and, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of was realizing around that time that, there's also people who do the voices for this stuff. And I had always been interested specifically in vocal performance, but it was kind of a weird thing because it's like, I liked, the idea of like performing and things like that. But for like acting on stage, I was like, I don't know if I'm like really comfortable. Like, I don't know what to do with like my body and all this kind of stuff. And then I wanted to be a singer. Like for a long time, I was like, I want to be a rock singer. But it's like, I wasn't like, I liked singing, but I wasn't good at like writing songs, which I know would be such a core component of that. And, I don't know, I guess I liked the idea of like playing somebody else other than myself, like you would in, maybe a play or something, but I also like the idea of just like using my voice to perform. So I didn't really like think about voice acting or know much, obviously on some level, like, oh yeah, that's like people who are acting as the characters in cartoons and stuff. But until I got like into anime and games and stuff, I didn't really like think about that. And then it kind of all made sense, like, this is something that I want to do. And I knew some people at the time who, because I grew up in Alaska, so there's obviously like nothing up there in terms of voice acting. So I thought like, I don't even know like how I do this. You had to be in one of the places where the work was. But I knew people at the time who said they would do flash animations on the internet because people would just bring in, because at the time, this was before content creation was heavily monetized like it is now. So people would just like animate stuff and put it out there, or just like make their own projects. And it wasn't like a for-profit thing. Like they weren't like hiring people to help most of the time. It was just sort of like people on the internet collaborating to do things. And because it was, it was all just sort of like amateur, like people collaborating together, it wasn't like you had to like be in a studio and record or whatever. So most of the times for the voices, one of a few different things would happen. Either the animators themselves would do the voices, and they just like, for the female characters, they'd either like pitch it up artificially, or they'd have like their sister or mom or girlfriend or somebody like just to do it. And, you know, a lot of times you could tell that the people weren't actors, so they were kind of, you know, just like just reading the lines or whatever. Or sometimes they would even use the text-to-speech voices, and that was even really popular as kind of a stylistic choice this was like back in 2004 or 2005. But, you know, I felt kind of lucky in the sense that, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have much experience. I would occasionally just like rent anime DVDs and try to imitate the characters, which, you know, isn't really a viable thing now. But it's like back then there weren't resources and all this stuff.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, there
it was
wasn't.
kind of like, I was just flailing around in the dark trying to do something. So I just like message these different animators and be like, hey, like if you want a girl who voice acts, I can do that. And, you know, I put together like my crappy little homemade demo, which again, obviously now you don't do. But back then when it was kind of like, it wasn't like a monetized thing, stakes were low, you could just kind of like message people and be like, hey, I'd like to like work with you. And they're like, okay, cool, if they were interested. And so I feel like I got kind of lucky in the sense that I was like the female voice that was in a lot of the Flash animations of that era. And, you know, I just kind of I also learned to like make my own projects with my friends and things like that. You know, it was nothing exciting. It was like game parodies and things like that. But, you know, just kind of continuing to flail around in the dark and learn what I wanted to do. And then eventually, after a lot of time passed, I kind of, you know, I knew like, oh, you have to be in LA if you want to do a lot of this kind of stuff. So I made plans to move out here, and I've been out here for about 10 years now. And, you know, It's a very long journey, which I think people don't really realize, because altogether, I've been doing this for 17 years, if you count, you know, all the time I spent doing it as a hobby, which is kind of like training in a sense. You know, you're like practicing and you're kind of learning
your
as
skills.
you go. Yeah.
You're leveling up.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Good. Now, you want to know what's, you know, not funny, but it is kind of funny because it's piggybacking off of what you just said about doing the Flash animation stuff. We recently interviewed Ethan Gallardo, and he was telling us that like that was kind of his, you know, first time getting his foot in the door, like doing the Flash animation stuff for Newgrounds. Now, was Newgrounds like one of the sites that you were doing the Flash animation stuff on, or was this? Or was not? And see, man, Newgrounds, that was I'll say it, that was the shit back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And, you know, there was a lot of like, you know, there were a lot of like mean people on the internet and stuff back then. But at the same time, I am very grateful to this site because it just kind of allowed me to just like explore a lot of, because, you know, if you make your mistakes in an environment where it's not like money and like business contracts and stuff on the line, you can just kind of like do whatever and learn as you go. And you know, I think it's a little harder for people trying to do this stuff these days because everything online seems so high stakes. Even like just kind of the unpaid fun projects, it's like there's this pressure that young people have that they have to go pro right away. They have to get this studio because, you know, with good audio quality being more accessible on a consumer level, there's also the expectation that everyone will have it. So there is a big like financial barrier in place, I would say, to starting now. And, you know, it's just like, I feel like people are less forgiving of like, oh, I don't know, everyone's just kind of doing this thing for fun and who knows what. And it's, you know, everyone's taking it so seriously, which there is a place for that, but it's also, I feel like it's a lot harder for people starting now.
Now, Miss Kira, I want to ask you a question. Since we're here now at the conversation, do you feel like the pandemic situation has put more of a pressure on people trying to get into the industry now, or does it kind of help them because a lot of people are recording from home right now?
So I think it's a combination of both. For the actors who already lived in a major market, which these days, especially in terms of anime, it's pretty much LA and Dallas are the two big ones. And for people who lived in one of those places already, if they did not have a home studio, which a lot of them didn't, because here's the thing, like I bought a booth back in 2018, like a full-on sound booth for my home. It's pink and it's very much like my aesthetic. But you know, I had it because I would do a lot of like indie projects and I'd work with international clients who, you know, I just like record the audio and send it to them. So I already had a need to be able to record in professional quality from home. And now when it came to like, anime games, all that kind of stuff, we would always physically go into the studio. But for auditions, we'd record from home. So like back then, because you'd be brought in no matter what, if you booked the part, it didn't really matter what your audition quality sound like. But the thing is that it could help, because I know some people who just like didn't care and they're like, oh, I'll record it from my phone or whatever. But the thing is, it's like, even if your acting is good and your voice is good, if the quality sounds terrible, I feel like it's harder to make a good impression on the casting director.
Yep.
So I always wanted to have like, to be able to deliver that quality even for my auditions and stuff. But I still had to upgrade, like the setup that I had wasn't good enough when I started for, because what's good enough for like an independent client online isn't necessarily broadcast quality for studios. So, I had to put a lot of money into my current setup, and so did everyone else. And at the time that the pandemic hit, it was kind of like there's a lot of financial uncertainty, because we didn't know like, okay, we can upgrade our home studio. What if we don't like work that much? What if we don't make our money back? But, oddly enough, and I feel very fortunate to say this, 2020 and 2021 have been my busiest years in my entire career. I'm not doing as many games, unfortunately, as I used to, but anime, it's just like being produced left and right. I feel like there's like a ton of new shows coming out every week practically. And, if you're like a recurring character, a lot of times you will have a session every week for a lot of these shows. So it's kind of like, I felt very fortunate that I work even more consistently with all the media that's coming out now. And, so it is a downside for the people who maybe cannot afford to get a booth, because, booths cost like anywhere from like $5,000 to $10,000, sometimes even more. And that's a lot, so you can kind of make a makeshift setup with different things, but it's going to be hard to get it to sound as good. So if somebody didn't have any of that stuff, like they didn't have any kind of home setup, it's like a big paywall almost to kind of like have what's required now for the remote recording. But the nice thing is that we are seeing more market crossover. So for example, a lot of the LA market and the Texas market, you would sometimes see crossover, like if an actor, they were in Dallas and they did a bunch of stuff there, and then they move out to LA, and sometimes they'll come back and do some of their parts or whatever. But now we're actually seeing like Texas actors working out here and vice versa. And sometimes, depending on the studio, they will even bring in people from totally different markets. I've had a few of my international friends get pulled in for small parts and things.
Nice.
And that's really cool. Like, if it were up to me, I would not even live in LA. I would probably move back home. But we're not at that point, because there are still some studios that are like, no, you have to come in. But, I guess kind of my goal for the industry in the future would be that people, if they had a broadcast quality setup, they could ideally live somewhere where it's like, it's nicer, it's not as expensive, better quality of life, and still be able to work. Because as of now, it's like I'm kind of tethered here because it's how I can work.
Yeah, that is interesting. That brings another question that I kind of want to talk to you about. As far as recording from home, you are recording from home. You said you bought a booth and things like that. So, like, do you have to stay close to them, with work and stuff? Or is there sometimes they need you to come in and record things? How does that?
It depends, because last month I was able to visit my family for 2 weeks. And I set up kind of a makeshift like booth and space there, and I was actually able to record my ongoing shows so that production didn't miss their deadlines. So, there's one show that's pretty big that I can't talk about yet, is at the time of this interview, but I recorded for a pretty major show while I was up visiting Alaska, which was so surreal,
Yeah.
But the problem is that I know that if I were to move out of LA, a lot of my opportunities would decrease, because there are still some studios that say you have to come in.
You gotta come in.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Banks.
That's something that, because we've heard that before from some of the voice actors in Texas, where it's like they have to stay in Texas, because sometimes you have these big projects, especially the ones where like My Hero Academia, for example. You have to stay there, because you have to record, because they're trying to have the dub episodes come out just as fast as the sub episodes. And why I feel like that is a amazing thing that we have in today's world, where it's like we can get these shows at a much faster pace compared to how we used to get them back in the day, where it's like you had to wait several years to get a dub for something.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons, but the big thing I'm hoping too with remote recording is that it'll mean people can actually take vacations. Now, actors can never take a true vacation because we have so many, like, you know, just the anime industry these days has weekly deadlines for a lot of shows, and a lot of things just can't wait. So we can never take like a full, like, I'm gonna unplug from everything vacation, unless it's for maybe like a day or half a day. But you know, in terms of like, say you wanted to go somewhere for a week or something, as you know, I would like the idea that as long as you could have access to good internet and like a broadcast quality setup, you could theoretically still do your work and not get recast in projects and stuff like that. So, you know, that would be kind of the goal. But I know the other thing too is that we just don't know what the future is going to look like. You know, we thought recently when things were looking pretty good, oh, studios are probably going to return to studios any moment now. And then it's kind of like, well, we have to go back in. But because of like new variants and new concerns and stuff, a lot of the studios here are just saying, no, we're going to stay remote for the time being unless someone like needs to come in.
So something that I wanted to piggyback off of what you had said earlier was about like how you used to do the video game stuff, and that option it still is available for you, but there's just so much more anime that is coming out left and right. And we've seen like a whole uprising on Netflix where they're just dropping anime in the snap of a finger. The new Shaman King anime just came out on Netflix. And, you know, I just love, again, to, you know, what I was saying earlier about how, you know, you have so many options to just pick up an anime and like it's available for you as soon as it comes out instead of waiting those years. Now, I want to kind of take it back because, you know, I'm a huge JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan. I already said that in the intro, and I know that you're a huge JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan as well. Now, tell me, so you were on part 4 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Diamond is Unbreakable, which is my favorite part. And, you know, I'm just happy that we've been able to interview some of the voice actors and actresses who have been a part of that. And one of my goals is to get everybody from part 4 on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks because it's just my favorite part. So how was it working on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
A dream come true. I've been really into JoJo since 2013, which is also when I got my Joestar tattoo.
Nice.
And I don't know, like JoJo is just like something that really captivated me, and I got more and more into it as the series went on. And you know, like my friends make fun of me because I'm like that one obnoxious friend that never speaks about JoJo's, you know. But JoJo's influenced a lot of my music taste as well and stuff like that.
Same.
So, you know, it was obviously like very, very special to me to get to work on it in some aspect. And I actually got to do like little background characters in an episode of part 3 as well as an episode of part 5. So I feel like really honored too to kind of be in 3 different parts, even tiny parts.
Really cool. That's really cool.
I love how you said that, you know, you talk about it so much that your friends say that you're obnoxious. I know Dee's just like, I know the feel.
Yeah.
Hey.
But
Words can't express.
Watch it, and they're like, "Oh, I see why you liked it so much."
I try getting these guys to watch JoJo, and
it's not for me. I watch a lot of anime, and it's
you have to give it some time. Like
I think it's an acquired taste.
Where you can just watch like a few episodes and be like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like
you know, for some people they love it, and some people you just put it on your bucket list, you know.
Yeah, well, I will say that they did, because we reviewed Dust Spoke Rohan, and they did enjoy that.
Rohan's a cool character.
I was happy about that, but it's like a lot of people, they always say that they try to watch part 1 first and they're not feeling it. And then sometimes you have people who just skip past part 1 and 2 and go straight to part 3. And it's just like, no, you have to watch this stuff so that way you know you don't skip part. I know. I wish more people wouldn't skip parts, because JoJo it's just one of those things, like it's an amazing series. And then when you do the deep dives and you find out the history behind, you know, all of it. Now, did you ever watch the original OVAs that came out back in the day?
Bits and pieces of it. I know those were like pretty iconic too. My favorite form of JoJo media has always just been the original manga, because I think that the animated adaptation does a wonderful job. Like, absolutely, it's very like accurate to the manga and stuff like that, but I also feel that there's no substitute for people, like if they really want to get into it, you got to read, especially because a lot of the later parts haven't been animated yet. I mean, we're playing catch up a lot, but you know, just like when I first got into JoJo, we didn't even have part 3 animated yet, so you had to read. Like, that was the only way that you could do it. I mean, to give you an idea of like when I started reading JoJo, for the first half of part 4, I had to read the Dwayne version.
I've heard about that version too. I never read it, but I just know that it's crazy.
It's iconic in terms of meme status.
Yes. It's if I could put it on the level or compare it to anything, it's like the Room of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, just because of the dialogue that's in it. Just like, huh? Did he really just say that? Yeah, it's very wild. Now, you know, to piggyback off of something you just said, because a lot of the parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they haven't been animated, and recently we finally got the trailer for Stone Ocean, and I've seen the photos that you have online where you cosplay as Jolene Kujo, and I know you're excited for Stone Ocean to finally be animated.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I read on your website where you like, one of the biggest achievements that you could accomplish is to voice Jolene Kujo, and I'm rooting for you. I think it would be awesome. The voice actress who's voicing her in the Japanese dub, like, that was one of the things that she said. She said that she got into voice acting with the hopes of one day voicing Jolene Kujo, and now she's going to be voicing her. So, like, how would it be if you went into that audition and you got the part? Like,
I hope, you know, I'm trying, like, this is the hard thing too about when you're like an actor, but you're also really, really passionate about certain shows and games and stuff, is like, you always have to accept the fact that the odds are probably that you won't get it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even the actors you see where it's like, oh, they're in everything, we are all constantly auditioning. Like, I lose track, and you know, anyone else would tell you the same thing. We all lose track of, like, we're just auditioning for things every day, and most of the time we don't book them, you know, because it's like you're just kind of throwing things out and being like, okay. So it's why, like, they always tell people try to send and forget, because most of the time you know, you can do this audition that you work really hard on, it's going to go to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, you know, but the hard thing is with something like this, that obviously I do have a history with, I am very passionate about, I can't really just throw that out the window. So I think it's kind of like trying to tell myself, like, okay, this is out of my hands. I'll of course be happy if I get a fair shot to audition. If I get a fair shot and someone else books it over me, then, you know, it wasn't meant to be, and I have to be at peace with that.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. I always say it's best to always have low expectations, because if you set the bar high, when you don't get what you want, then you'll be really upset about it, compared to if you have a low expectation and then you do get the part, then you can be super excited about it, because it's one of those things where it's just like, man, I didn't think that I was going to get it. It's the same thing like with me with professional wrestling, where it's like every time I go to a show, when it comes time to sell merchandise, I never have high expectations, because it's like, you never know. Like, I've been at shows where people haven't bought my merchandise, and then I've been at shows where I've sold out. But it's like, you always just want to, I don't know. I mean, it kind of sounds
shoot your shot.
No, not shoot your shot, but it kind of, you know, it doesn't sound positive when you just like, oh, like, why would you want to set the bar so low? But I mean, like, it really does help you out when you look at the grand scheme of things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's always good to set realistic expectations. I think is the key to most situations, if not all situations. But you have to have the mindset first to do that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm also like, you know, I've of course like talked online about, oh, I'm really excited to see part 6 animated and stuff like that, but you know, especially as soon as it was confirmed we were getting the anime, I've tried to be very careful not to say like, oh, I hope I get the part, or I hope I get to audition, because it's like, I feel very like fortunate and honored and like flattered that so many people are like, oh, we want you in this role, like we won't accept like anybody else. But you know, if it's not me, which is a very real possibility, I don't want whoever gets it to have to get any hate or anything. You know, I want, like, obviously it should go to whoever is the best for the part, even if it's not me. So I don't want to, you know, have like have like an army on my behalf or whatever. Because it's like,
You don't want the beehive.
Uh,
The Kira hive. No, the Kira killers. Yeah, there we go. The Kira killers. No, yeah, killer queens. I love that. Yeah, because I think that I've heard that before, where it's like sometimes if a voice actor or actress doesn't get the role, like sometimes the fans will go and attack the other person, but it's just like, no, it's like we're not competing with each other. It's just sometimes things happen, and you know, the other person, they'll get the role. And you know, even if you can get Jolene, like as long as you can be in part 6, because it's like part 6 is something that we've all been waiting for, especially because of the pandemic. You know, production on it got pushed back, but to see that it's going to be coming out on Netflix this year, and you know, like that's an awesome thing.
Soon, yeah.
Yeah, because you know, most of the time we're just waiting and watching it weekly, but it's going to all be in our hands in one day. And you know, like I was telling Trav, because Cobra Kai is supposed to be coming out in December as well, and he's just like, I feel like Cobra Kai is going to be higher than JoJo. I was like, bro, you do not know JoJo fans. So like, please don't say that. But no, it's going to be awesome when it comes out. Now, I wanted to, you know, kind of take it back, because you were on Hunter x Hunter, and that is another one of our favorite anime. So how was it working on that?
It was fun. I mean, it was a pretty small part. I wasn't in a ton of episodes, but I enjoyed playing Zushi because, for one thing, I don't often get to play boys. Like, I do occasionally, but usually it's like side roles, like NPCs that are like unnamed and things. So getting to play one that had like a story arc was very, very cool, and I was glad to be trusted with that. And you know, I love his enthusiasm.
Yeah, he's definitely a very cool character, and he's somebody that I do hope that we eventually see again once the anime does come back, because Hunter x Hunter, like, it's been around for such a long time now, and it's one of those things where we're just waiting just to see. And another thing, like, we're waiting, you're in Yashahime, which is the sequel to Inuyasha, and you play Setsuo. Now, how was it playing on that show? Like, were you a fan of Inuyasha before auditioning for that part and getting it?
Yes. So that was actually like the original Inuyasha dub was one of the things that kind of helped inspire me to be a voice actor for anime. Not even joking. Like,
Good show.
I was so obsessed with Inuyasha. Like, kind of how I am with JoJo now was like me with Inuyasha when I was like 17. And so it was very, very full circle.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's something that we all watched, and I love how you said that it's what got you into wanting to be a voice actor. I feel like there's always these things that we have in life, like with me with wrestling, you know, seeing a certain wrestler be on screen and being larger than life, and just like, yo, this is what I want to do. And you know, you watching Inuyasha back when it came out back in the early 2000s, and to be one of the main characters on this show, like we interviewed Morgan Berry, who's on the show as well, and we've also interviewed Alan Lee, and they were huge fans of the show as well. And you know, they talk about how they grew up and they watched it, and to, you know, be a part of this, I feel like it's just as big as, you know, people watching Dragon Ball Z growing up, and then now they are on Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's something that I've noticed more with this generation too, because I feel like a lot of the current generation of actors, a big part of what inspired them to be actors was like they watch these shows, they play these games, and then, you know, it kind of like inspires them to maybe go into the industry and stuff as well. And so if a certain like reboots or, you know, sequels or different things come out, it's like, it's just so amazing to be part of something iconic that was influential for you early in your career. Like, if you had told me back then, like, hey, one day you're gonna play Sesshomaru's daughter, I'd be like, what?
Sure. Man, that's wild.
It is, man, because I
That's gotta be
remember
a cool feeling.
I remember when it was when like the first teaser images for the show had came out, and they was just like, hold on, Sesshomaru has daughters. Like, who does Sesshomaru have daughters with? And it's just like, I feel like all the real Inuyasha fans just like, come on. It was like but yeah, it definitely is an awesome feeling. And just being on that show, and now with it being announced that season 2 is coming out. Now, when we had Morgan up here, one of the things that we had told her was that I feel like it's because we watched the dub growing up, when Yashahime first came out and we were only getting the sub, like it was good, but I don't know, it was just something about watching the sub where it's just like I didn't have like that same Inuyasha feeling when I was watching it. But then as soon as I watched the dub, I was just like, yo, this is making me feel like a teenager again. Like, and the new cast that they have up here, like it feels like I'm watching Inuyasha. So I just want to say pinkies up to you and everybody that's involved on Yashahime for making me feel like I'm a teenager again, because that's an amazing thing.
For sure.
Well, and so cool that they were able to get a lot of the original cast back too. Like, I had no idea how that was going to work because the original cast is based in Canada, and sometimes when you have production in 2 different countries, things can get really complicated. But whatever magic they use behind the scenes to make that work, that's super cool.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, it's very nostalgic to hear those people again. You know, I don't know better words to use, but it was, you know, it's part of our childhoods, and it's good to hear them again, as well as, you know, the new voices.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, was somebody about to say something?
Oh, no. I do have a few questions about, I guess, Miss Kira's childhood, but we can get there when we get there, man. Keep driving, Banks.
Okay, no, yeah, I was just about to bring up Demon Slayer next, because that's another one of our favorites. I'm currently reading the manga right now, because especially after Mugen Train, and I was just like, yo, I can't wait for season 2, just like with My Hero Academia and just like with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Thankfully, we do have the manga out here where we can just pick it up, especially on the Viz Media app, and we can just get right into it. So how is it being a part? Because it's just like, if I could compare you to anybody right now, and it's like John Cena, who is in like these Hollywood blockbusters this summer, and it's just like you've been in these top popular animes, Hunter x Hunter, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and now you're in Demon Slayer. Like, how is it working on that show?
It was really cool. I didn't have a lot of sessions because Mitsuri, even though she's a very popular character in the show, she doesn't really talk that much in the anime. And hopefully, you know, if there's more in the future, I'm told that she has a lot more stuff in the manga. I was like so bummed that she wasn't in the movie, because that would have been so cool to be a part of that. But yeah, I was actually really surprised when I got cast, because to kind of go back to what I said about auditions earlier, I was thinking, oh, like that's really cool that I get to audition for this. I'm probably not going to book it. I can think of like 3 other actresses off the top of my head who would probably be better for this role than I am. But, you know, you never know. That's why it's like you always just like, if you get sent an audition that you think you can remotely do, like do it, because even if you think that you know what they're looking for, they might be thinking of something else.
Yep.
Yeah. D, you can go ahead and ask your question now.
Oh yeah, Miss Kira, I just want to slide back to you growing up, being born in Alaska. What is, I gotta ask, what's it like there? You know, I know y'all deal with, what is it, 30 days of night and 30 day, isn't it 30 of day too?
No, that's actually like a really common misconception. If somebody's like up near the North Pole or something, then they might get more weather like that. But otherwise, I feel like that's more of like a thing from movies and stuff.
See,
I would say like we do have, compared to, you know, like now where I live in Southern California, we do have shorter days in the winter and longer days in the summer. Like sometimes in the summer, the sun will set around like midnight, but
really
it's still not like, you know, completely one thing or the other.
That's still pretty sweet.
And then the rest of the year is just kind of average.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. That was, I just wanted to ask, you know, since we had you on and I saw that you were from there, that's pretty cool. And thank you for clearing that up for me. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. Like when you said the 30 days of a night thing, I automatically started thinking about the vampire.
Come on. Of course. I mean, of course. That's a great movie. But yeah. Now I know that the vampires wouldn't be able to get me. So yeah.
So moving along, this goes back to you know, voice acting question. You were just on the show, the anime Godzilla Singular Point. Now I wanted to ask you, are you a huge Godzilla fan?
I actually wasn't like, I was never like super into it, but you know, I still, obviously when I was cast, I was just really excited to be such a part of such an iconic property. And then when I found out who I was playing, I was like, oh, this character is really important. I got to do this justice. So, and you know, when the character changes form later, I was like, oh, because I didn't I didn't know that when I first started recording, and so that was like a surprise to me too. And I was like, oh, okay, this is getting real.
Yeah, and it's just awesome. I mean, like I said, you are just working on like these big projects, man, and I just feel like anybody that's watching and listening to this episode, like if you've ever have inspirations to become a voice actor or actress, I would say like Miss Buckland is somebody that you should look at, because like she's had an incredible journey, like going back from when she said she first started in voice acting to doing the Flash animation to where she's at now. We were just on the podcast and me and Dee, we were talking about how, some people kind of what you were saying earlier, they get into things and it's like they feel like that they just need to invest and go big. But it's like sometimes you have to have those humble beginnings and you have to crawl your way up to the top, so that way that you can stay humble and you can stay like-minded. And then when you do get to the top and when you do get these big roles, like everything will just be in place. Sometimes people expect to get so much in the beginning, and you do have to, just have fun with it and enjoy it. And when you finally do, like I said, get to the big time, then that's what it's all about.
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of patience, but one of the big secrets that I will tell you as well is that there's not really a such thing as the top. Sure, you have some of the actors that maybe like anyone can tell you, like, oh, we know like who's like the greats of this generation. But the thing is, even a lot of those actors, like the people that I look up to, maybe like they're still dealing with like insecurities about where's my next job gonna come from. They're still worried about like, oh, am I not getting like cast in a lot of things because I'm like getting older and all this kind of stuff. It's like everyone has their own insecurities and everyone compares themselves to other people. It's like, I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to work full time as an actor, but because being able to go full time is all about the consistency of the work. Because I mean, it doesn't really matter like if you're big part, like you can be like leads in some shows and like small parts in other. I mean, you're getting paid the same hourly. The difference is that as a lead, you're probably going to have more hours. So whenever people say like, oh, if I could just get a lead or this or that, it's like, yeah, but that's not a guarantee that you're going to have like stability in your career and your income. So, I feel like there's never really a such thing as someone who just like, well, there's always exceptions, but especially in the anime industry, it's like most people don't just like get to a point where they can stop auditioning or stop trying. We always are still auditioning. We're always still trying to work because career longevity, it's like you have to like keep trying for things. We're all freelancers, we're all independent contractors, so it's like you can play a lead on some show with like a certain studio or with a certain end client. There's no guarantee that you're gonna get anything on the next project that they do. So it's like you have to really like be trying to get auditions from all different sources. You have to be like constantly kind of marketing yourself and updating your materials and staying competitive. Like a lot of people will still continue to take classes even after they're working consistently, because it's kind of like otherwise if you can't kind of stay competitive, then other people are going to outread you and outbook you on projects. So it's like, I don't think that most people ever really get to a point where they can just kind of be complacent and be like, no, I'm good, I'll just wait for like work to come in, because that's, unless you're like a celebrity, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Now, to piggyback off of something that you had just said, because I know you mentioned earlier that Inuyasha was one of the animes that inspired you to get into voice acting, but who were some of the people that you heard their voice and those are the ones who inspired you, and then once you got into voice acting, like these became your what's the word I'm looking for? I guess like mentors or something like that?
Well, some of the people I never got to meet, because for example, to go back to Inuyasha, Monica Story, who was the original voice of Kagome, she was like somebody that I completely idolized in terms of like her voice, and I wanted to sound like her. And I would spend a very long time like listening to her voice and trying to like get a similar like cadence or whatever, because I thought like, oh well, if I can have like a cute anime girl voice, then I can work in anime. And it's funny because now it's like the opposite. They want very like authentic and natural reads for a lot of things, but back in the day it was like there was kind of a specific sound to a lot of anime dubs back then, and so people would try to sort of affect that to to learn to do it. But I really looked up to her, and sadly she retired from voice acting a while ago from what I've read. So, and she was based in Canada, so I never got to meet her or anything. I did, over the years I have gotten to, of course, meet people whose performances I looked up to and things like that. It's really weird because once you're in the industry, it's like these people are just kind of like people you work with. So it's not, most people aren't like, oh my gosh, I met this like famous person or whatever, because it's just kind of like, oh, like this person is your director on the show today. But
yeah,
it is really cool when you're working on a show that's directed by somebody that is pretty iconic in the industry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that feeling. It's one of those things where, to take it back to wrestling, where it's like you grow up and you watch this person on TV, but then it's like when you actually have to work with them, you know what I'm saying? It's just like you have to kind of hold being a fan back, if that makes any sense, because it's like you want to keep it professional. I know that we've had voice actors up here before where they said that they've been at cons with even some like wrestlers or actors or actresses that they grew up watching, and it's just like, yo, I can't mark out right now because I have to just stay professional the entire time.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is it can be a challenge, but I think when you're in work mode, it's kind of easier to just be like, okay, I'm here to do a job, I gotta like be good at my job.
So another show that you were on Miraculous Ladybug, and Trav was here. That's one of Trav's favorite shows. He watches it with his daughters, and he also told me to tell you that he's a huge fan, and he also said some nonsense that I want to tell you after we finish talking about Miraculous. But
sounds about right.
But Miraculous, I've seen a couple episodes of it. I feel like it's this generation Sailor Moon. How was it working on that show?
It was really cool. Sadly, because my character is in the background most of the time, I don't get a lot of screen time with her. But there were a couple episodes that were Alex centered, and those were really fun to work on, especially the one with Bunnix, because I actually did that all in one go. Like I played the current Alex and then future Alex, and have them like talk to each other and stuff like that. And that to me was just like really fun, getting to explore different ages of a character, if you will, and stuff like that. And I definitely wish she had more screen time because she's cool.
Yeah, I know if Trav was here, he would ask you so many questions about Miraculous, because like I said, that's something that he watches with his daughters. Now, the nonsense that he said was that he told me that he loves your name, Kira, and he says that Kira is his favorite character on Death Note. And I told him, I was just like, well, Trav, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, if I tell her, mention Kira, she's going to say something about Kira from part 4 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And then this man said that Death Note came out before part 4 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm just like, Trav, like, bro.
But, I mean, I loved Death Note back in the day as well and stuff, and I cosplayed from it and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like one of the reasons that I love Yoshikage Kira from part 4 is because he really looks a lot like David Bowie, who's my favorite musician.
Good pick for musicians anyway.
Yeah. Plus his stand looks like a cat. I mean,
yeah, exactly. It looks like Mewtwo in a way.
It does. That was the first when I first saw Killer Queen, I was like, oh, it looks like a robotic Mewtwo.
Exactly. And I just, like I told D, Kira, he's one of my favorite villains from the JoJo series. I mean, I love Dio, but it's just something about Kira where it's just like, he's just smart, he's sophisticated. And the only reason why he got caught, spoiler alert, is because he messed up. You know what I'm saying? He went that long being in town and nobody finding him, and then he messed up. But no, Kira, he definitely is one of my favorite JoJo villains. And I wanted to piggyback off of, because you mentioned that you cosplayed, and I know that I've seen pictures of you cosplaying as Jolene Cujo. Now, something I do here on the channel is I interview cosplayers. So I guess we can kind of take it away into the cosplay scene. And how was it going to your first con? Did you cosplay when you went there?
Yes, I cosplayed Kagome actually, because that was my very first cosplay ever. And I was in high school at the time, and I remember my first con that I ever went to was Sakura Con in Seattle because, you know, being up in Alaska, that was kind of the closest con we could go to at the time. And then I ended up starting a con up there, which is like still going to this day.
Nice.
Obviously run by different people, but I was just like, oh, we don't have an anime con up here? Okay, let's make one. And, you know, then soon learned how much work that actually involves.
Oh yeah, coordinating and things.
So you go to your first con, your Kagome, and you know now before the pandemic, I'm sure you were still going to con after con after con after con. And when you go to cons, when you cosplay, you level up and you just start doing so many more amazing cosplays. What have been some of your favorite cosplays over the years that you've enjoyed being?
Oh, there's been quite a few. I mean, obviously Jolene is one of my favorites because I've cosplayed so many different variations of her. I have cosplayed various versions of David Bowie as well. Because of course I have another one I did was like Gem from Gem and the Holograms. Oh, and in terms of JoJo, I've also cosplayed Raimi because I mean I kind of had to. And I did Lucy Steele from part 7 at one point. Because like usually I stick with Jolene, but once in a while I wanted to change it up. I kind of like to do Mitsuba from part 8 at some point, but you know, it's also hard because the other thing about cosplay is that it's very expensive.
Yes.
And it just gets, you know, because certain times I would like cosplay characters I voiced too. Like I did Mary from Kakigurui and like a whole bunch of others. But, you know, it's just like, it's a lot. Like, it doesn't matter really, because even if you're making it, like I've tried to learn to make my own. I made a few of my own and stuff, but it's like, it's a lot for like materials and then the time and stuff. And I don't know.
It can be.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about cosplay is that because you can make your own stuff or you can purchase it. And like how you already said, it can be very expensive, but when it comes to making your own stuff, like that's why I love going to the thrift store and, you know, just finding whatever you need there and then piecing everything together, because sometimes you can go to a thrift store and like you can find exactly what you need.
You never know what you're gonna find.
You never know.
Never know.
That's like basically what I did for my Asuka. So it was like one of my cheaper costumes. But another thing is that my favorite thing to do with cosplay is the makeup. Like I'm really into makeup. It's kind of like one of my hobbies or what have you.
Okay.
So I really, really like just doing like cool makeup looks and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, because I know that I have some cosplay friends where it's just like sometimes like they don't even wear costumes to the cons. Like they'll just, you know, do like a sick makeup. You know what I'm saying? Because if your makeup game is on point, and like I've seen some of your photos and your makeup game is on point as well. If it's
filters, but thank you.
oh wow. But yeah, it's like if your makeup game is on point, like then you're dope. You know what I'm saying? You really don't have to do much. Now, I wanted to ask you this now, when you aren't cosplaying or when you're not doing voiceover work, like what are some hobbies that you're into?
Pokemon Go, that's a big one.
Oh, good pick.
Yeah, I like to just, you know, go out and do raids and stuff like that. I'm actually, I'm so sad because right before we did this interview, I was trying to do a raid because I really wanted a shiny Palkia, and my game glitched. There were 5 people in the lobby. My game glitched, so I couldn't get in. So I had to restart it, and I was trying to get back in, and I couldn't. And then so I remote invited a bunch of people, and we had 4 total, but we were all like, you know, over level 40. So I thought, okay, it's gonna be okay, and we didn't get it in time, so I wasted my raid pass. I'm just
it's a very fun game to just kind of play because you don't have to necessarily know people. You know what I mean? It's like a community-driven thing, and you kind of do it at your own leisure. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Me and my wife are trying to get a shiny Heracross right now. So.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, nice and pink. Yep. So
has the game, like, has it, you know, gotten more advanced? Because like I remember when I was playing it, like because I'm a driver, right? So it's like I would drive to a bunch of areas and I would always try to see if I could capture different Pokemon that way, but you know, I always kept on capturing the same ones, not Pikachu, Pidgey and Rattatas, and I'm just like,
it's come a long way, big guy.
Oh, I have
come a long way. Oh yeah,
because I know that there's a lot of people that still play it and they have fun with it, and you know, they still come up with updates and everything like that, and I just love that they added the feature where it's like you can. I'm not sure if it's in the newer Pokemon games, but I think it was when not Hey You Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, when those came out, that you could capture Pokemon in Pokemon Go and then put them in the Switch games. I thought that was an amazing feature.
Yeah, it's a good connection.
But D, you can go ahead and take the floor.
Let's see, Miss Kira. Oh, there was a question I had for you. You said that David Bowie is one of your favorite. First, who are some of your other favorite artists?
Well, David Bowie's obviously like my favorite.
I mean, he's the man. Well, let's not get it twisted. David Bowie's sick, but yeah, anybody else underneath him, should I say?
Yeah, so I mean, some of my other favorites, and it's probably going to be fairly predictable, but
no worries.
I love like Green Day, Rolling Stones, Queen, Pink Floyd, Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, good pick.
Nice.
Great pick.
Yeah.
How does King Crimson work?
Now,
Mac, all that kind of stuff. I love classic rock. That's
I mean, it's a great era.
Yeah.
I want to ask, what's your favorite David Bowie song or album?
So my favorite album is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from
Nice.
Mars. And my favorite song is actually on that album, but it's not one of the more popular ones. The track is just called Star. So I feel like not a lot of people know. I mean, David Bowie fans will obviously know it instantly, but I know people won't have heard it on the radio or what have you.
Yeah, and it's funny, we just came back from Greensville, North Carolina con, and I was actually talking to Banks on the way there or back about, I think it was on the way there, about how underrated, his music kind of is, the stuff you hear on the radio, doesn't do him justice because he has so many songs that have never played on the radio. So it's funny that you picked him. Yep. So David Bowie's he's a great. I mean, I love his music. I love his energy.
Yeah.
So that was kind of all I had, Banks, until my closing question, really.
Yeah.
No questions.
I was going to piggyback off of what Kira had just said because I love Queen as well. Did you ever check out the Bohemian Rhapsody movie?
Yes, I watched that in theaters.
Did you cry when you watched it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I needed to know.
It was so honest of an answer. Yeah.
It was sad. it was sad. I remember I went to go watch it after NecoCon that we have here in Virginia, and when I went
to NecoCon once.
Oh, for what year?
Oh, I don't even remember what year because honestly, the convention seemed like a completely different timeline thanks to the pandemic. But
yeah.
Well, now that you have been to NecoCon, we hope that you come to NecoCon again. And when you come there, we got to get a picture with the Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks crew, and hopefully Trav will be there. You can let him know that Kira from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is better than Kira from Death Note. I'm just saying.
I do want to since we're in this smorgasbord of conversation now, I do just want to say, Kira, do you know the song by Queen, "The Show Must Go On"?
Yes, of course.
It's an amazing song, and I think that's one of the most emotional songs that I really like, because it kind of sums up Freddie Mercury's journey and, knowing what he went through, his condition and stuff that he contracted. It was just, I think that's a very energetic song, and it has a lot of meaning to it. Yep. So I was just curious.
Also, Made in Heaven. I feel like anyone who's read part 6 through the end, it's like you can't ever hear Made in Heaven again without tearing up.
Yeah, I'm reading part 6 right now, and I'm at the part where they just got Foo Fighters, and I feel like I've kind of been spoiled on what happens because I got what's the game? JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Eyes of Heaven, and like they revealed stuff in the game, and I was just like, oh well, who are these characters?
And that's gonna be a minefield. Even reading, like, it's funny because I do JoJo panels at conventions, and even when we're talking about kind of like the setting of part 7 as opposed to part 6, I'm like, well, I kind of have to, like, there's no way to really explain why part 7 is what it is without sort of kind of spoiling part 6.
Oh, wow. It's like that. I mean, because I know that part 7 and part 8 take place in a different universe. I know that much.
Right. But to kind of explain why it's a different universe would kind of be like part 6 spoilers. So it's sort of like we have to dance around it like, well, different universe, but you'll see why when you get there.
And see, and you want to know what? I just got to say that I love and appreciate you for not spoiling it, because there's some JoJo groups that I'm in on Facebook, and they'll be like, well, JoJo part 6 came out in the year 2000, so I can say what I want, but it's so many fans who don't read the manga and they only watch the anime. And even though that the option is out there for them to read the manga, there's nothing wrong with that. If you only want to watch the anime, then you can watch the anime. But it does suck when you have people who spoil stuff. Like, I know one of the biggest spoilers that pissed me off was when I found out what happened to Rengoku before the movie came out. And I was just like, why would somebody post that in the group? Like, it's like they posted it the week before the movie came out. And I'm just like, how did an admin approve this? You know what I'm saying? So it's the manga and the anime, it's a gift and a curse, but I'll never spoil anything for anybody unless they ask. Like, I know D, he always asks me questions about My Hero Academia all the time. And I don't go into great detail about stuff that happens, but
can't be everywhere at once, you know what I mean? Banks, we both watch our respected stuff for the our podcasts and things like that, and then we watch our stuff in our free time. So can't be everywhere at once, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, like Steve Rogers said, you can't run everywhere.
Well, I think it's nice, like in terms of the Facebook groups, to have like a couple different spaces, because obviously, as somebody who's like caught up in the JoJo manga, I appreciate it when I can talk about later parts and spoilers with people.
Oh yeah, true.
It's nice to have one where it's like, okay, because I know, like, for example, I'm in a group as well where it's specifically like a manga group, so it's you get fair warning, like, hey, if you're in this group, it's assumed you're caught up. Otherwise, don't blame us if you get spoiled. But in like more general groups, it can be kind of hard to balance.
Yep. Yeah,
exactly.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, because I know when Dragon Ball Super came out, the anime came out in 2015 in Japan, but the dub didn't come out in America until I want to say like 2018. So it's like by the time it started in America, like it was already over in Japan, and it just sucked because there were so many people who was watching it as it was airing in Japan, and then when they wanted to talk about it in the group, people would be like, oh, you're spoiling it for me, I'm waiting for the dub to come out. And I'm just like, well, dang, I mean, like there's no time window on when the dub's going to come out. So
yeah, it's just kind of hard to talk about topics like that. Yeah, in general. Yep.
But yeah, D, go ahead and we can go ahead and wrap this thing up. I don't have any more questions, so D, you can go ahead and ask your final farewell question.
All right, Miss Kira, I usually do 2 wrap-up questions. One, my first question is, if when you were growing up, did you have a TV show or a movie that really scared you and stuck with you?
I can't really think of anything that scared me necessarily, because I didn't,
Okay.
I didn't get to watch a lot of stuff growing up, unfortunately. But,
got it. We're all adults now. Do you have a favorite horror movie?
See, I don't know, because I've watched like some different like foreign ones that I don't remember the names of, that friends
got you.
Times.
Yep. We actually review we have one on our channel now, Blood Red Sky, which is a foreign film.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
Yes, it is. If you haven't seen it, you should write it down, and next rainy day you get a chance. Really good spin on a vampire movie. But yeah. And second question is, do you have a favorite 80s or 90s movie?
Yes, so I feel like this is cheating, but in terms of 80s in particular, it would be Labyrinth.
Ooh, good movie. Ooh, Banks, have you seen that one?
Come on, bro. I mean, I understand why she said that it would be considered cheating because who's in it, but no, I've seen that movie.
So good in it too.
The Goblin King.
Yeah.
Yep.
And actually, one of my cats is named Jareth after.
Nice. That was such a sweet villain. It was so cool.
Yeah. What's crazy is like that was the first time I had ever found out about who he was, David Bowie. Yeah, because it's like I was over at my babysitter's house and they were watching it, and I was just like, yo, who is this guy? And you know, it's like you said, D, like he's somebody that really doesn't get the recognition that he deserves.
Man, he goes much deeper than you know, the few songs they have on the radio, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's another thing that bothers me is I feel like they only play like 5 songs of his.
Yeah.
Like, the man had 50 years worth of music.
Yeah, he has so much good music. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He's featured, I think, in some of his more commercial stuff, of course, but they had a couple of his songs in a Game Boy or a DS game called Elite Beat Agents.
I remember
where it's
game.
Like a rhythm game, and you get to play some of his songs, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's a Let's Dance in that.
Yes, yep, and it's that whole game is amazing. They have Rolling Stones is the last one. Jumpin' Jack Flash is the final boss song, and it's amazing.
Which also makes me think of Part 6.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't know much about Part 6, but
this guy and Kira, I was just like, hey, do you guys want to review Part 6 with me? And it was like, nah, we're good on it. Like, see, this is what I got to deal with.
I mean, I don't I don't bash you for it. Not as bad as Trav does. Yes, Trav does. But it's like, I feel like it's to each their own. There's so many anime and so many genres that have opened up, you know, as of the 2000s and on, that, you know, to each their own. You know, I recently started getting into more of the I don't want to say romantics, but what would you call it? Like dramas, I guess. Mm-hmm. Some of the movies that have come out, you know, like your words bubble up like soda pop. Great movie, you know, and that's not something I would have watched growing up. It just isn't.
Or Violet Evergarden.
Yes, correct. Exactly. Yeah. It's more of the story than it is action.
I agree.
But, yeah,
I agree.
Go ahead.
But
take us out.
Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Kira, it was awesome having you up here with us on this week's episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. You were awesome, and it is good to you know, have another JoJo fan up here. I really wish Trav was here, because I mean, there was one time we had Kaden Jensen up here, and it's like Trav couldn't defend it. Like me and Kaden, like she was just going in on Trav because Trav was trying to do something to make JoJo fans mad, and he was just like, I was just trolling, and she was just like, well, how are you trolling if you're the only person that's laughing? I said, exactly. This is what I love to hear. So you already know where you can find me, your hero, Benjamin Banks at KingBenji_Banks on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on Facebook at Benjamin Banks. I should be the first person to pop up. If not, then I need to contact Mr. Zuckerberg. D, let them know where they can find you at on social media land.
That's going to be rebellious_D23 at Instagram.com.
Right, thank you. And Kira, thank you again for joining us.
Yep.
Like I always say,
thank you.
Keep that pinky up. Stay positive. We'll see you next time on Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Peace. Hey.
Oh, that was.
I don't know why I didn't say Muda.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching another episode of Leveling Up with Benjamin Banks. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the channel. Podcast, we got that too. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and hit that bell for further episodes and notifications. Thanks a lot to our patrons. And if you don't mind, join the Patreon. We'll be having new specials coming up soon.